spooky music. The spooky, spooky music. Oh, it's not over? Oh my god. Hey, kill this thing here. Kill this. Get this out of here. I shouldn't have closed it. Use it for later. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Terrestrial Material, where we talk about the material us terrestrials are interested in. Huh. We had a hearing. We had a UFO hearing, huh? Can everybody hear me? Anybody in chat out there want to let me know if you're hearing me well enough? Sometimes I feel like I need to up the volume on my mic because I feel like I'm getting too close lately, but I don't know. So we're going to go over the hearing today. I'm going to give like a little bit of a review, kind of some thoughts that I have from it, some moments that I think stick out. I think the entire hearing was like 3 hours long, almost. So it's very, very hard to get everything, that you're going to want in there. But I think I pulled out some cool moments for us to kind of look at and go over. Obviously, we're gonna look at like the Hellfire missile, a lot of that stuff. I actually found a pretty interesting debunk from a tweet today, and I went over that this morning, and so we're going to go over that. So a little bit of a layout here. As you see on the screen, we're going to start with, of course, the official, okay, what everything started with. But we're going to go over some pre-hearing things. There were a couple little notable moments prior to the hearing that I want to talk about and show you guys, so we're kind of like on the same page with that. And then I do want to kind of break into the witnesses. We go into some moments into the hearing. We'll go over Novitzky. We're going to talk about his orb experience, the triangle. He makes a comment about abductions. We're going to watch a little clip of that. That should be pretty cool. And then, of course, Alexander Chief Wiggins. We're going to watch his UAP video. God, I don't want to say UAP. But the Tic Tac video that he has. And I'll read you guys a little synopsis of really what that's all about. And that was a big moment from him. To be able to see that video. We knew there were going to be a couple of videos that were going to be a part of the hearing. We didn't know exactly which ones, but I kind of figured that was going to be one of them, and we got to take a look at that video. So we'll see it again. We'll go over it again. Of course, George Knapp, probably the most recognizable person. I think that's easily said in the entire hearing. We'll take a look at a couple of the moments that he had that were interesting. I've got a little bit of a gripe with how everything went with him. Which we'll also get into. I wanted to hear a little bit more about Bob Lazar than we got, but interesting enough. And then, of course, Dylan Borland. He was a big star from the hearing. Very entertaining story about his triangle experience over Langley. And so we're going to watch him, and we'll go over that, and I'll give kind of my thoughts overall on Borland and just how well he did and maybe some future for him. Because I think everybody wants to hear a little bit more from Borland, right? I do. And then finally, Burleson, he kind of comes out on fire. We're gonna go over Burleson. We'll take a look at a couple of clips from him, and then we're gonna really kind of look at like this timeline of this Hellfire missile video, like where we started hearing this from originally. We'll have to give Red Panda a shout out for it because he ended up finding exactly where we got the first initial little hints that this video existed, and we'll go over that, and then we'll go over that debunk, kind of like I mentioned. And then kind of maybe wrap it up with like post hearing, because there was a really big clip that came out, I think as of last night, from Stephen Colbert that we want to go over, that I think that kind of provides maybe a little bit more context to where the general public is, and then where the fallout is of this hearing, kind of where people's thoughts are. And then maybe I'll give you kind of my final thoughts on the hearing, and then maybe a little bit of what comes up next. A lot of maybes, a lot of we'll sees. Okay, I've got a giant list of bookmarks. I did my very, very best here on this to order these, but I think that I got hit by the Twitter people here on this because they put some of these out of order from where we want. So I might have to bounce around a little bit. We're gonna be bouncing around because of the clips anyway, but so bear with me if we gotta kind of juke the order back into place again. I'll go ahead and do that. So first and foremost, what was this? Okay, we have a what here? The Task Force on the Declassification of Federal Secrets hearing titled Restoring Public Trust Through UAP Transparency and Whistleblower Protection. This was on Tuesday, September 9th, 2025 at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. This was at the U.S. Capitol Visitor Centers, and the witnesses were Jeffrey Novitzky, U.S. Air Force veteran, Chief Alexandro Wiggins, UAP witness, George Knapp, UAP journalist. We all know Knapp. We all know him. And of course, Dylan Borland, the UAP witness, U.S. Air Force veteran. Now, I mentioned that we had a little bit of pre-hearing that definitely went on, and I want to jump right over to that. You see, did it put these out of order for me? Yeah, it put a couple of them out of order. All right, so we'll have to, like I said, bear with me on the order of this. So this was on September 8th. We have Stephen Diener tweeting out, "Quite the room tonight at the pre-hearing reception. Everyone working towards one goal of disclosure." Who was at this reception, huh? That's always what we want to know. All right. Oh, we got Stephen Greer hanging out here in the back. How could you miss Greer? If you guys can highlight where I'm at right there on the back left there. And then in the middle, you might not be able to see him too well, but look where my cursor is. We have Jaime Musan. He's hanging out. He's chilling. And then this one kind of surprised me right here. I can't lie. Sarah Gam was there. We'll take a sip of my coffee. Sarah Gam was hanging out. She had a little, maybe it was a little wine or something, the pre-hearing. And then, of course, Burleson is there. And then really tucked in the corner, you got Robert Salas right there, Bobby Salas. He's hanging out. If there's some, wait, is that, I don't think that's Carl Nell right there, is it? I don't know. I think he looks just a little bit older than Nell. I don't think that's Carl Nell. Can't believe I didn't notice that in the first time. But yeah, the really secretive man in the very back here is UAP Gerb. He was in the back there. I believe it's Gerb. Don't yell at me, okay, about how to say the name. And then, of course, Danny Sheehan. It wouldn't be a UFO hearing, a UAP event without Danny Sheehan. He's in attendance, of course. And then we have Luna. Oh, maybe that was Carl Nell. Yeah, Carl Nell is right there. I didn't look at these other two pictures. I figured, we got to save some of this stuff for the stream. We'll take a look at it when we're going through it on the stream. Yeah, he's there. And then, of course, Burleson again. And I guess this is Greer, the broad-shouldered Greer. That's got to be him, right? And he's got the little bald spot. I'm going to have that bald spot right there. That's the one that's going to get me. I'm not going to lose my hair. My parents still have their hair. Thank goodness. But I will get this. My dad's got that little bald spot right there real bad. So it's coming for me. It's coming for me. So that was pre-hearing. Wow, these bookmarks are really out of order. Thank you, Elon, for putting all these really out of order. All right. And then we heard a little bit about an incident with David Grush. Okay. So this is, once again, September 8th. As you can see at the top, this is prior to the hearing. This is a little shout out to UAP James. I think UAP James has got a few clips that I pulled from this in this entire presentation here. He's been clipping a lot. He's always got good ones. Obviously, Red Panda Koala is the clip maniac, dude. He's always got clips. I try to grab my own. I don't want to overuse and be too lazy with the clips, but sometimes these guys make it so easy that I'm just like, screw it. I'm going to grab it. But here is Anapolina Luna. She is on News Nation with Chris Como, and it says at the top here, this tweet, Rep Luna on David Grush's incident prior to entering the skiff with herself and Rep Burleson. Okay, so they're back into a skiff already again, right? I want to hear more about that. The quote is, in my opinion, if you're going to brandish any weapons at congressional staffers, it's very alarming. All right, we'll let the clip play and we'll let it speak for the rest of itself. I'll adjust the volume as we go, guys, just in case it's a little bit loud. I don't want to kill your ears.
Him going into the skiff with me and Representative Burleson. Something happened as he was driving in to do a...
Hold on. I can already see from my levels, this is too low. It's too low. Let's get it up to about 150 on that. The volume master.
We have some good testimony from witnesses. Not to mention, again, you should ask Grush about the weird incident that happened prior to him going into the skiff with me and Representative Burleson. Something happened as he was driving in to do a VTC with us. So it's very interesting kind of handling this topic. Obviously, anytime someone says, no, don't look there, you know me, Cuomo, I always tend to look and see what we can find. And what I can tell you is, there are many people.
Wait a second. Hold on a second. Hold on. I have to stop right here. Why are we using this photo of Grush? This makes him look a little silly, no? We're still using the silly photos of Grush. Come on. Continue, Luna. I'm sorry.
I can tell you is, there are many people from all across the DOD, across the entire U.S. government. Over 30 people, to include our own Secretary of State, have come forward and said, there's something here. And so I think to question it, to look at the evidence, and then decide for yourself what you have to see on the matter.
Joe Khalil, News Nation. got us the reporting. You can't just throw the Grush thing out there.
Yeah,
like that
you can't.
And not tell me what do you know about it?
Yeah, what's going on?
Why do I have to ask him? Do you know what it is?
Because I don't want to take that away from him, and law enforcement is involved. But in my opinion, if you are going to brandish any weapons at congressional staffers, it's very alarming, and I will leave it at that. But what I can tell you is it was very interesting in timing, and based on what we've heard previously with some of these witnesses, to include some witness testimony that you'll hear tomorrow, this is not the first documented case of this, which is incredibly important as to how do we address this in the future. First of all, whistleblower protections need to be a lot stronger. We also have different...
And this was a big theme of the hearing. I didn't grab a bunch of clips from it because it just seemed redundant. But there were a couple large themes from this hearing. One of them being arrow bad, and then the other being whistleblower protections. So this is kind of the start this is kind of the start pre-hearing. We're starting to hear a lot about this.
Different UAP legislation where these members of Congress are coming together. And I do think that also, you know, there's a lot going on in the Hill. As you know, Cuomo, there's a lot of partisan stuff, but this is one of the few bipartisan things that we've been collectively able to work on together.
Yeah. So there you go. You got potentially someone, for whatever reason, brandishing a gun at David Grush. Come on, we can't have that. Now, I will say this. It does seem rather convenient that this happened prior to a hearing that is so heavily whistleblower protection. Not saying it didn't happen. My God, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it is a crazy coincidence that happened. Now, she did say that there's an investigation going on. Maybe later on down the road, we're going to learn more. Maybe later on, we learn exactly what happened, who brandished the weapon, what have you. I hope we do. I think that we will going down. Now, did that stop David Grush from appearing at the hearing? No, it did not stop David Grush from appearing at the hearing. Joe Khalil posts, before the hearings begin, we spot Representative Eric Burleson, who's been very out front on the UAP topic with his relatively new staffer, David Grush. I mean, he's not, relatively new. I don't know if that's a good way to put it. He's been there for a while, a few months, that I can recall, since at least May, I think he got in there. So I don't know if that's really relatively new, but didn't stop David Grush from being there, though. So shout out to him, and he stood his ground, and he was strong and said, you know what, I'm still going to go. Okay, he's still in the public eye, so props to him for that. But let's be honest with you. You know, David Grush has been kind of the go-to guy for Burleson behind the scenes. It seems like he's the one that's vetting the witnesses. He can suggest subpoenas. You know, he's really making a lot of calls. And I think that Burleson and even Luna, I think these people are listening to him and taking his guidance, maybe more than people even think. Now, Burleson, I still think, has his own series of investigations that he's going through, and I think he touches on that a little bit in one of the clips a little bit later on here, but still, Grush is a main component. He's a main ingredient. If you believe him, then you believe Grush and you believe his entire story, then that's going to be 10 out of 10 for you. If you're not so believing, not so trusting of Grush, you probably just spells disaster, right? So it's an interesting thing nevertheless. All right. Any more pre-hearing? Yeah, we do. Actually, let me double. God, this really put these out of orders for me, guys. This really put these out of order for me. Okay. So this was one of the things pre-hearing that I was expecting. Okay. This was, at least from me. Okay. This is what I wanted from the hearing, is I wanted to know more about George Knapp's claim, since George Knapp was there. His claim about knowing where Element 115 was located. Okay. In this clip we're going to watch, George makes some really crazy claims, in my opinion, about Element 115 and Bob Lazar. And I really wanted to hear this addressed. It was very important. Maybe we'll get some address of this at some point. Maybe it'll probably just fall by the wayside. I don't know. But I'll play this clip for you guys. And this is really what I wanted to hear about that we didn't. Okay.
We do know now that research into anti-gravity is at the top of the list of what American tech companies are doing and Defense Department folks are doing, and anti-gravity propulsion is something they want very badly. Bob said that the key to it was this element 115. He had a piece of it. I saw it. In fact, he had a little experiment they did with what's called a cloud chamber, where they had, it looked to me like light. They had a piece of this 115 in this chamber. They put some smoke in it, and it seemed, and then had a beam of light through it, and the light bent. Bob, at one point, when he thought he was going to die, had this piece of 115 in a, it was in a lead casing, in a disc-shaped casing, and he had it in front of a particle accelerator at his house, and he had the accelerator on, and all he had to do was flip a button. If this stuff was real, as he described it, flipping that button would hit it with, I don't know, it's protons, electrons, whatever it was.
We get it, George. We get it.
Make it explode, an annihilation that would have left a great big hole in Las Vegas. And he had that piece. I saw the experiment. What happened to it? That's a story for another time. It's in a spot now where nobody could get to it, but it's still there. One of these days, maybe after Bob's gone, I'll go dig it up.
Oh, he'll go dig it up one day when Bob's gone. Yeah, look, I thought this was a massive claim. I mean, I'm really surprised that George this was never brought up to George. I had tagged Burleson and Luna in this clip initially. I pulled this tweet of him because Jeremy Corbell was asking everybody, hey, what do you want to hear ask at the hearing and stuff like that. So I did tweet this at Jeremy, but this is a good opener for George. No, what do you think? I wonder if he seen that and was like, what a dick. But no, spoiler, we didn't get the answer when it comes to this. Nobody asked it. So when I'm talking about like my review of the hearing, I obviously want to put in a little bit of my take on it. I'll put it in a little bit right here now. This was very disappointing to me. Now, there is another Bob Lazar moment that's a little bit down the road here in the hearing that we'll talk about that was also kind of disappointing. And I think you'll see why as we continue. So this was a little bit more pre-hearing for you guys. All right. Now, also prior to the hearing, we did get some comments. All right. And we got a comment, I think, that's notable here. This is a post from Stephen Greenstreet from Tim Phillips. Okay. And it says here, and here's a comment from Tim Phillips, the former deputy director and acting director of Arrow. This is Phillips' comment on the hearing. Phillips says this hearing is political theater, not a legitimate search for the truth. There are a number of actual unexplained UAP cases that should be the focus of Luna's inquiry, but these hearings are simply entertainment for the UAP audience. Ooh, shots fired. What's going on, Tim? I like you, Tim. Is he wrong? Is he wrong? I mean, there's definitely a lot of entertainment that's involved with this. And we definitely didn't get any new proof or, undeniable whistleblowers coming out and just throwing caution to the wind and telling us exactly where the bodies are, the craft. We got a couple of skiff moments and I call them skiff moments because where these witnesses, or at least Dylan Borland, said, I can only talk about this in a skiff. So he said, so this is Phillips' moment here. He said, I also asked Phillips about the claims of Luna's, quote, witnesses, Alex Wiggins, 2023 Navy Tic Tac encounter, and Jeffrey Nutiselli, the 2003 Vandenberg Air Force Base UFO, and if Arrow ever investigated those cases. Phillips, I do not recall Arrow meeting with or evaluating the claims of Rep. Luna's witnesses. That's interesting. It's especially interesting because Borland definitely mentions that he went to Arrow, that he spoke with Arrow, and that he didn't want to give Arrow all of his information because he was a little bit worried about reprisals and getting everybody else in trouble, and Arrow bad, Arrow bad. So look, maybe Phillips for some reason doesn't know, but I mean, it's just an interesting little pre-hearing moment, right? You get these little comments and things like that. So when we start to look at the hearing itself, okay, let's take a little look at the lineup. Okay, we got some cool photos of the lineup. Look at this photo. I really wanted to show this one to you guys. Okay, Estimate of the situation. Everybody knows Estimate from Twitter. Great guy. Restoring public trust through UAP transparency and whistleblower protection. This is his shot. Okay, Estimate got a press pass, and he was able to get in there with his camera. He does incredible video work. He does really, really good comics. If you guys aren't following Estimate of the Situation, you should. You should. He's got a lot of really cool content. And as you can see, he's a hell of a photographer. This is a great shot. Of course, you have Jeffrey Nutelselli here. You have Chief Wiggins here. You got George Knapp, Borland, and then this is, I believe, Steven Spielberger. Is it Stefan Spielberger? I don't know. I always want to say Steven Spielberg. I think it's his first name is Steven, but it's Spielberger. This is the guy with Pogo. I guess maybe I forgot to mention him. We're not going to touch on him too much. I'm going to show you a little bit about him, about kind of what I thought was interesting about his organization and what they were trying to kind of put forward to Congress. But this is just a really cool cinematic photo. I mean, wow, right? Wow. I don't remember seeing any other photos that had come out from other journalists or reporters that looked this good. Now, however, I mean, I think Estimate was trying to really go for those big kind of cinematic looks. That's his style, right? And so it's a good way for him to stand out. And he was carrying around. I should have grabbed the other picture of him too. He was carrying around his camera, just hands, steady or handy cam. That's what he was doing. I was thinking to myself, man, we got to get you one of those stabilizing rigs on and run around, move around. But I guess he was actually in the press area where he shouldn't have been. He was able to sneak out in front and get some other shots. So I'm sure he's got more of those that are on the timeline for him. You guys go check him out. It's very, very cool. Now we have another photo of the group, because why not? Because why not? We got to get all these photos here. All right. So we got all the gangs all here. And what we can also do is take a little bit of a look at who is in the audience here. Okay, here's Jaime Maussan. God, you know, I should have pulled the clip of Jaime. He, at the beginning of the hearing, now that I remember this, I'm seeing this. God, I wish I would have pulled it. But he looked like he was going to pass out. He was so tired. And he was leaning. He was leaning on his right, Eyes were closing. I caught him catching himself, kind of waking himself up a couple of times throughout, which is very funny. So Jaime Maussan's in the presence, of course, Matthew Brown, right? Matthew Brown, and then Jeremy Corbell. They're hanging out. How do these guys know each other? We know. And then UAP Gerb, once again, hidden in the back. And then you know what? There is Stephen Diener right there. There, he's hanging out. The who's who are here, right? If you got the big podcast, people know you. You're there. This guy, I can't ever remember his name, but I think he's in the New Paradigm Institute, right? I think that's who he is. He's like the head of that, or there's some group that he's the head of. I can't remember his name, but he's obviously chilling. And then all the boys are here. And so this is Mr. Spielberger here. Man, they should have put his first name. That would have helped me right there. Would have helped me. And then Dylan Borland. And I'll tell you what, I noticed throughout the hearing, you guys are probably going to have to go back and take a look at it again. But once again, it's just like more clips. I could have picked 1,000 clips to go over all this stuff with, but there's just only so much you can really do that makes any sense. I have a feeling that Borland and Matthew Brown know each other. We don't have any idea of that. We don't have really any documentation or video prior to the hearing. We didn't really know anything about Borland prior to this. But when you read his statement that he submits to Congress, the last couple paragraphs, he talks about like shredding the Constitution, or the Constitution is being shredded essentially because of how these whistleblowers are being treated, and the public isn't being told what's going on. They were just a lot of shades of Matthew Brown, the way he speaks, just shades. Now, could that all be coincidence? For sure, but I just get this feeling. And then there's a couple different times throughout the hearing where Borland is speaking, telling his story. And you might actually get a couple of those moments when we start watching Borland's testimony, because I have the whole triangle story that we're going to look at with him, and where Matthew Brown seems to be reacting a lot to his conversation. And that doesn't mean anything, really, I guess. I mean, it could just be that he agrees, but I just get the sense that they know each other. And these are the reasons why. Your mileage may vary, as they say. So there's the big layout. All right, everyone's hanging. Everyone's there. Let me get the other photo. Okay, so we've seen two packed photos. Let's look at the other side. All right, let's look at the congressional side. This is a shout out Doomer Daddy here. He's got the photo for it. I think Doomer, you know what? I think Doomer actually screenshotted this from Red's stream because Fringe is on here. And I think that's what was going on, which, by the way, I was supposed to live stream this with Red and he overslept. So I said, hell with it. I'm going to go ahead and take a bunch of notes. And I watched it on my own and we did the big space afterwards. But when you look at all these empty seats, boy, after all this UFO conversation that's been going on since David Grush, you would imagine if we were really getting the ball moving down the road, right? Getting the ball down the field, this place would be packed. You know, it would be packed. You want to get as many questions as you can. I mean, this hearing was long. It was 2.5 hours. Almost 3. I think it was getting close to 3. But you want to see this fill out. We want to get as many questions as we can. There's going to be people who are not as interested in UFOs. They're going to have some good questions that'll pull out some details that we didn't get. And then you'll get maybe some super fans of UFOs that are in Congress. I know one of them, Mr. Crane, he mentioned that he had become a believer over this time period. So, and he had some good questions throughout the hearing. So you really want to see this thing fill out. But until we get some real proof, some real material to some terrestrial material, some real material to kind of, sink our teeth into, I until we get, these people like Elizondo and Mellon and Lukatsky and all these people into skiffs and get them testifying for some real information. Unfortunately, this is probably what you're going to be looking at. You're going to be looking at a lot of empty seats. I always reference, I always kind of touch back and reference this. There, Matt Laszlo last year did that giant kind of audit of congressional members asking how many really knew about David Grush. And when you really look at the numbers, it was around 60 some, close to 70%, almost didn't even really know about David Grush, didn't even really know who he was. I'd really like to see Matt Laszlo either this year or next year try his very best to do a brand new audit of that, a brand new survey. That's a better way to put it, survey, right? I'd like to see him do a brand new survey and see just how much that's changed. That'd be very, very interesting. So that's a little bit of a look. And I know some people are kind of making fun of this online. They're like, it's proof that nothing's going on. But hey, it is what it is. We gotta make sure that we're getting something to sink the teeth into to kind of move everything down the road. All right. Now I want to start diving in here. Man, these really put my bookmarks out of order for me here. Okay. So like I said, we're gonna get moving on it. Okay. So first off, I want to start off with Novitzky. I think I know where we're at right now. So let's start off with Jeffrey Novitzky. Let's give his account. He's got a couple of really interesting accounts. Which one do we want to do? We'll do the triangle first. Okay.
Later that.
Okay. Let's pull this clip over here. So this is Jeffrey Novitzky talking about this triangle encounter. And this was also, before we play this clip, this was another theme. And honestly, this has been a theme amongst a lot of ufology lately, not just this hearing, but we're getting a lot of stories about these triangles. It keeps coming up, the triangles. And you get multiple stories in this hearing about triangles. And if you ask me, there's a reason. There's definitely a reason. I think that if we're going to hear anything in the future, we're really going to be able to get any tangible proof, evidence, what have you. I think it's going to be about these triangles. I really do. So he's got a really interesting account here, and I'll go ahead and play that for you guys.
Later that night, while I was on duty, security guards at a critical launch site reported a bright, fast-moving object over the ocean. I responded to the incident. Chaos ensued over the radio as the object approached rapidly. I heard my friends screaming, "It's coming right at us, it's coming right for us, and now it's right here."
Now, what I have to stop it right here. What I think would be really cool is if we had that audio. Remember the audio from Rendlesham? It would be so cool. I mean, maybe we can get a transcript. I don't care. I would love to have this kind of documentation on those comms. That would be awesome.
Moments later, I heard them say that it had shot off and was gone. When I arrived on scene, I talked to 5 shaken witnesses who described a massive triangular craft larger than a football field that hovered silently for about 45 seconds over their entry control point before shooting away at impossible speed.
Okay. So that's very interesting story. Silent hovering, taking off, instant speed. We've heard all of this stuff over the years from the TR-3B. We've heard rumors of a additional B2 that was supposedly developed alongside the initial B2 that was 50% larger. It was silent. So we have like things like this in the past, many references to this, and it's references to actually what he's describing here. So I think that there may be a little bit of something to that. Now, the next clip is his story, okay, his actual experience. He's reporting before on his the people he was with, okay? But this is actually his orb story at his house. Now, this one stands out to me, this clip, because obviously, if you've been around my channel at all, or if you've heard me speak at all on this topic, I had an orb sighting in 2016 myself, of 2 of them actually, at the same time. That was the sighting. And the way he describes the sighting, the way he talks about how he feels, how kind of his interaction, if you want to say that, if you want to kind of extend it, it all seems to kind of resonate with me. And when he's telling the story, he seems very genuine. So this stood out to me. Maybe I'm just a little bit biased, but I believe him on this story. And I think it's very, very interesting. So we'll go ahead and play it for you guys.
And then I had my own encounter, again in 2005. I was off duty, sitting in my backyard with 2 other police officers when we noticed what first appeared to be a satellite in orbit, but it wasn't acting like a satellite. The light was strange, it was pulsing, and then it started to maneuver. It dropped in elevation. At times it would vanish from view and reappear in a different location in the sky, and eventually it reappeared 200 feet over my house. It was a 30-foot diameter sphere of light. My friends and I watched it for a moment, and then it gently accelerated and traveled up and disappeared into the stars.
Okay, I guess I left the last part of it out. But he talks about how he's essentially feels like maybe he notices the orb before it notices him. There's like this kind of silent interaction between him and the object, which to me resonates a little bit because, I mean, right before I had seen my orb sighting, I had been looking at my phone all day. Granted, I was playing Pokemon Go, but I did have this urge of like, look up, look up. I didn't hear anything or anything like that, but he just got this feeling. And he kind of talks about a little bit of a similar feeling. There's some kind of connection maybe that's involved there. And when we talk about connections, he said something that really stood out, and it stood out a lot to a lot of people. And this is the first time that I can recall in any hearing of them talking about, at least referencing, abductions. Okay, this is really, this was like one of those moments where I was listening to it and I was taking notes and I was like, oh, wait a second. Whoa, you know, we're going to abductions here. And this is what he brings up. This is very, very cool. I'll play for you guys.
So obviously your incident happened well before we could record things on cell phones and things of that nature, right? What did you do when you first experienced? Because what you saw, right, you saw it happen like right out of your base.
Correct.
So tell me what you did after you saw that. What was like your next move? And I want to hear what your experience was.
My next move, I went into my house after it left. I made sure no one had been abducted, and I picked up the landline. I called the Security Forces Command Center. I reported it. I requested that they give me a call back and make notifications up the chain of command.
Now, I will say this. If you go back and listen to how he describes this, though, this is kind of interesting. Watch how he acts when he talks about the abduction itself, or not the abduction, but like checking on it. Oh my goodness, I'm gonna get killed over saying that. Here he goes.
Next move, I went into my house after it left. I made sure no one had been abducted, and I picked up.
Kind of laughs it off, huh? He knows there's stigma to that. He knows there is. He knows it's kind of a wild thing to say in that setting, right? I don't know. It just seems interesting. He recognizes that. It's very, very interesting. Gab says, gotta run, but thank you, Tresho, for the good analysis as usual. Yeah, and man, thanks for coming, bro. It's a long show today. There's a lot to go over, so I just want to make sure we get a good, thorough look at it as best as we can, and just check it on the vibe, brother. Appreciate you. Good to see you. All right, so he talks about the abduction. That was a pretty interesting clip as well. Okay. Now, at the start of the hearing, Luna kind of opens up. I want to see if we want to go there. Man, I really wish this wouldn't have put my stuff out of order. I had this in such a great lineup way. Maybe we just go to Wiggins and we can get to the Kirkpatrick stuff. Yeah, maybe we'll get to the Kirkpatrick stuff and her a little bit later. Okay. So that's the stuff with Nusatelli that I thought was very, very interesting. Moving on to Wiggins, we have the video from Wiggins. Like I said earlier, we had a couple of these that we were wondering what was going to be shown for these clips.
No,
This was one of the clips that was shown at the hearing. So if we want a little bit of a backdrop here, this was the video from February 2023. Navy veteran Alex Wiggins, 23-year service member. Okay. He witnessed 4 Tic Tac shaped UAPs off the coast of Southern California while aboard the USS Jackson. The incident, which occurred in Warning Area 291, was detailed in the video released by, of course, Jeremy Corbell. He was on Weaponized, okay? The footage captured the ship's Combat Information Center, and I believe that's the CIC. It shows 4 glowing tic-tac-shaped objects emerging from the ocean, detected by multiple sensors, including radar and FLIR infrared cameras. Wiggins described one object rising from the water, joining 3 others, and all 4 departing in synchronized, instantaneous manner without any visible propulsion, heat signatures, or sonic booms. And this video does look a lot like the Tic-Tac video. So this is pretty interesting. I'm going to go ahead and play the clip for you guys so you can take a little look at what they played at the hearing for it.
Oh, that was for Alexander.
Yeah. Alexander's video.
Okay.
You could play it. He could narrate it.
Okay. We can, in the name of showing that video to everyone on task force, we'd like to play that video at this time.
Sure.
That shit took off earlier.
Okay. Now, at first glance, when you look at it, it's kind of cool, I guess. When you talk about UFO videos, I mean, this has kind of been the standard of what we've been getting. It could be a drone. It does look tic-tac, but once again, it's blurry. This was at night, this event, so you're not going to really get a whole lot of detail. It's when you're dealing with the infrared, this is kind of where we're at. It's a cool video, right? It's not disclosure, but at least wanted to highlight it because it was one of those videos that are there, and this was a cool moment for sure. It's definitely a cool moment. And by the way, there was a rumor we were supposed to get 3 videos, 2 that we had seen and 1 that we hadn't. We definitely got 1 that we had seen because this had come out prior on Weaponized, and we definitely got a new one, which is the Hellfire video that we'll go over, but we didn't get a 3rd. I don't know. So maybe that rumor was incorrect when it broke down to Joe Khalil. I think Joe Khalil was the one that actually reported on that. All right. All right. So that's what we got for Wiggins. I did in the link below put his entire testimony. Yeah, there's actually a link to the entire video right from the House Oversight website. It's got the testimonies. It's got the entire hearing. You guys can go back and watch. Really easy. It's all in one place down below in the description. So that'll be very, very cool for you guys too. Very simple situation when it comes to that. I like to try to make it simple for you guys. Okay, so moving on to George Knapp. George Knapp, of course, was quite the big deal at this hearing. Everybody was kind of looking forward to hear from Knapp. I was too. Listen, I have my things where I don't believe George on certain areas, especially with the Bob Lazar case, but I still do appreciate George Knapp. I mean, I've listened to him since I was a kid. I've heard him over the years speak about UFOs. I've always had fun hearing him. So I don't want to take a bunch away from him, but he did have a couple of cool moments that went on in the hearing, and I wanted to kind of highlight those for you now. The first one, and we'll get to that one, is the Russian documents. So this is kind of what everybody thought this is what everybody thought George was actually going to end up talking about at this hearing, was he was going to go over these documents that he smuggled out of Russia. Okay. And what a lot of people have wondered for a long time is, how is it possible that George got these documents out of Russia? But, we figured it out. He tells us right here how it happened. So this was a very, very cool moment. It's very funny in certain respects if you think about, the other explanations that could have happened of how he got them out. But this is George not being asked about that, and it's pretty cool. Here you go.
I agree with you. How did you manage to obtain the classified Russian UAP documents, and how did you get them back in the United States?
Well, I met this Russian physicist who was in the United States lecturing.
And I want to clarify that. I can't even take a thing of honey home on my airplane when I fly back to Tennessee.
Yeah,
so
I did something pretty dumb.
And I'm bitter about it, but go ahead.
I did something kind of dumb. I met with these officials who, during that time period, glasnost, perestroika, the Russians were trying to open up to the world, and I saw it as a window of opportunity, and it was. And we were able to talk these folks into providing us information that otherwise we would never have seen. Some of that was classified. I found out that they only stamped the top pages of these documents that were classified, so I just removed them. I removed those pages, and I carried them out. And
pretty slick. So you just remove the tops, remove the classified page. That's pretty cool. Yeah, he's a wild one for doing that. No, if they would have busted him, that would have been crazy. But so that was a really cool moment from George. He was asked a bunch of questions. He mentions, this is a clip from Red Panic Wallet here. It says, are you willing to name specific gatekeepers with the Root Cell UAP SAP Federation? Contractors who dealt with this specific people, and he named some names. And I will say this, man, this was a big reason why I think the hearing was so entertaining. And I'll maybe discuss this a little bit, and maybe towards the end too, but this hearing, we actually heard names. We've heard a lot of lore names. We've heard a lot of discussion like that we just didn't hear in the other hearings. When we had, like, at least with Elizondo, at least the last hearing, we had Gallaudet, Elizondo, you had Schellenberger, you had Mike Gold, and all you ever heard was, I can only tell you in a skiff. They'd ask him, who are the contractors? Who are these people? And it was always, I can't talk about that. Got to tell you in a skiff. This is one of the reasons why this hearing was so entertaining, and I think this is a really good example of it. Here you go.
Any of you willing to name specific gatekeepers within the root cell of the UAP SAP Federation?
A little bit of time here.
you mean specific people and contractors that have dealt with us and kept the secret?
Specific individuals.
Yeah, George.
Well, one of them was named Dr. James Ryder at Lockheed. But, you know, again, to emphasize, I don't fault these contractors for doing what they were asked to do by our government. They're supposed to lie if people ask about it. And the intelligence agencies who gave this stuff to them, CIA, I think primarily, told them to keep it quiet. And they've done that. And I suspect that they'd like an off-ramp, that they'd like some help with figuring out this technology at some point.
Are any of you willing?
So it's interesting. So James Ryder, if I'm correct, he was the vice president at Lockheed from 1973 to 2011. Okay, that's an interesting time frame for him to be there. If we remember OSAP, 2008, right? So around that time frame is interesting because there is this story we've all heard. I mean, this is what Grush had mentioned on Rogan, was that the original deal with OSAP, what they were supposed to do is they had an agreement, Bigelow, Lukatsky, I'm saying Lukatsky, because I believe that George mentions it a little bit later on. He does end up naming Lukatsky with that. Plus, Lukatsky was the director of OSAP, and obviously Bigelow got the contract, okay? So it had to be really them. But they had talked about how Lockheed was it made a deal to divest a craft to them. That this was the whole story of what OSAP was supposed to originally be doing. The time frame is there. So that's why he says James Ryder. I wonder if James Ryder was the connection at Lockheed that they spoke to, that they had talked about getting all that done with. I wonder. The time frames match up. Now, of course, as the lore continues, Glenn Gaffney, CIA Director of Science Technology, he is also rumored to have shut all that down and said, nah, we're not going to deal with that. We're not going to handle that. And what did George just mention in that clip? CIA. You have that connection there. Now, whether you believe that or not, story, that's not what I'm here arguing. I'm just telling you, these are the connections. It's interesting that George brings that up. Okay. We have another clip here of George talking with Tim Burchett. This is from Astral. George Knapp just went on record naming Lockheed Martin as a company in possession of UFO technology. This was cool. Whether you believe it or not, if you're a fan of UFOs for as long as I've been, it is absolutely entertaining to see this.
Who are the contractors that have this material, the corporations?
Well, one of them is Lockheed. And I'll tell you, I mean, I'm not saying Lockheed's the bad guys. They're doing what they were asked to do.
Sure.
They have lied about this because that's what they're supposed to do. But Lockheed would be one. There's a list I can give you, Congressman. Some of the big ones, the usual suspects.
Okay.
The usual suspects, the big names. That's a cool moment for George, man. It's always cool. I just think that those clips represent the reason why people really enjoyed hearing the hearing. Okay. I think that's why they enjoyed it so much. Okay. So let's jump over to Dylan Borland. All right. We got a few things that we want to go over with Borland. Let me make sure I got the exact clip of him. Okay. So right here, we pull another one from Astral. Big shout outs. Guys, go follow Astral. He's got awesome spaces. Unfollow. If I unfollow him, he'd be like, what the fuck? What's going on? He holds really great spaces, remote viewing spaces, and he obviously clips a lot, and he's really active on social media. So if you're not following him, go drop him a follow, man. There's some cool shit coming out of his account. So what we're going to go over is Dylan Borland, his testimony, his encounter with this black triangle UFO. And once again, it's on theme. We're talking a lot about triangles at this hearing. You'll see that, and we'll get into the arrow stuff a little bit later too. Like I mentioned, the arrow stuff is pretty interesting. We'll go over his testimony. I really like it. It's also very interesting. Once again, maybe I'm just biased. Seems legitimate. We'll see what you guys think.
Mr. Borland, in your testimony, you described witnessing large triangular craft while stationed at Langley Air Force Base in 2012. Can you explain what you observed in terms of size, behavior, and why you're confident it was not conventional technology?
Great question, ma'am. So on the base, I lived in the barracks. There was a little smoke pit outside. I was there on the telephone and looking across to the flight line, and I see a white light pop up and stop about 100 feet in the air. I thought it was a weather balloon. I've seen tests from there before, weeknight, normal thing, not surprising. I actually finished my cigarette and I began walking up towards the flight line. There is a track, and because I was on 3 months of night work, I would walk the track at night when we were weather down. And as I began walking towards the flight line and the track, the light then flies across the base, across the flight line, and as it flies to me, a triangle manifests around the light. I can't tell you if it's active camouflage. I can't tell you if it appeared around the light, but I can tell you that it was a white light, and then it was a triangle. It stopped about 100 feet in front of me and approximately 100 feet above me. My telephone got extremely hot, completely froze, dead. I remember how thick it was. It was between 1 to 2 stories thick, equilateral triangle. I could never see the top of it, and the edges were 90 degrees. There were 4 lights in total, 1 light on each corner, and a larger light in the center, 2 to 3 times the size of the corner lights.
Very TR3B. I'm going to pause it right here. Very, very typical, right? It's cool. Cool.
But what was really odd was the outside. The best way to describe it is like looking at a James Webb telescope picture where you have the colors and then the black background. So the craft itself was this black metallic flake paint, but on top of the craft was this gold, lava, plasma, some type of fluid going over and around the craft. I'm under this for about 2 to 3 minutes, and then the center light flashes 2 to 3 times, no sound, immediately shoots up to commercial jet level minimum, in my opinion, and I immediately feel static electricity all over my body, and then I smell the smell of after a thunderstorm or lightning storm, that really strong summer thunderstorm smell. Gets up to flight level, I'm trying to get my phone reset, and I can only see the center light at this point. If I didn't actually see it take off, I would have thought it was a star. And then it hovers up there and it begins to slowly move due east out over the Atlantic Ocean. I finally got my phone reset. The entire thing was about, from the time I saw the light pop up near the hangar until it took off out over the ocean, was about 15 minutes.
That's a pretty cool story. It's about 15 minutes. Now, the interesting part, I don't know if you guys picked up on it or not. You might not have, but the interaction with his phone, okay? And if you remember, if you've been, following this topic for a good long time, well, what's going on 10 years now? Can you believe it? I think it was, yeah, it's getting around there when Tom DeLonge was on Rogan. I can't remember the exact year. Maybe it was 2018, 2019 when he went on Rogan. But he showed this triangle video. It's a green video. I guess I could have pulled it, but Red's posted about it a bunch. And what Red is kind of, putting that thought out there for is maybe that famous night shot of that is actually the craft that it's his video. It's his video. It's Borland's video. Now, I think that video is fake, personally. But maybe he does have video on his phone. I mean, the iPhone came out in 2007. We have video then. This event's in 2012. Very, very possible that he's got some video from that. It'd be cool to have it. Now, later on, he talks about how he got into his special access program, his SAP, that dealt with crash retrievals, things that he's saying that he's aware of, things he's saying he can talk to about in the skiff, okay, because of this interaction. So down the road, I think we're going to hear more from him. I hope that we do, for the sake of getting a little bit better clarity on it, because there could be a key here. There could. To me, it looks like he's telling the truth, at least as far as he knows it. He believes it. Could you imagine that? 100 foot above you? 100 foot above you? 2 stories thick. Equilateral triangle. Very cool, man. Very, very interesting. And once again, right on brand with this hearing. Now, it's not all grand and great news, though, okay? Because with every side... Well, actually, before we play that, there's one other clip here from Borland that I want to show before we get into the Bob Lazar comment that he makes that really frustrates me nearing the end of the hearing. But this is an interesting little clip here. This is from Tom Thompson. Once again, drop him a follow. He's got his own YouTube channel too. Very interesting dude. We'll play the clip.
Think that, in your opinion, that the equilateral triangle was the U.S. government's technology?
I did once upon a time, but knowing what I know now, I'll have to answer that question in a skiff probably.
My next question is, you teased us, so knowing what you know now means what?
I know enough to know that if you want an answer to that question, go to Arrow. They have the answer.
Do you think it was a foreign government?
I do not, no.
Think that...
Okay, now there's 2 things that are interesting there, okay? And if we were to jump back and take a look at what Tim Phillips said pre-hearing. Pre-hearing, Phillips talked about not knowing the testimony, okay? Not being aware of the testimony of these witnesses. Now, what did Borland just tell you? He told you, go ask Arrow. What is that hinting at? That's hinting at that he has spoken to Arrow, okay? Now, the other contradiction that's very interesting is that if you remember back to the Stephen Greenstreet interview with Tim Phillips, Tim Phillips mentions that he feels that the triangle crafts are actually adversarial. He thinks they are from our adversary. Borland saying the opposite. Little things like that are pretty interesting. But he does say that, he mentions he used to think that it was 100% our technology. But then he also mentions a little bit later in the hearing too, that he feels that his triangle sighting in Langley, the government 100% has involvement in that sighting, though, in that moment. That he feels there is some involvement there, which is pretty interesting. So it's kind of confusing if you don't really put it together, right? But that's kind of what he's saying. Now, does he mean that the government's involved? We've got some kind of deals going on here with ET, or maybe it's the tall whites. They've always been kind of talked about to have the triangles, right? The tall whites. Or maybe that we've reverse engineered it, that we're 100% involved in the sighting, but it's not 100% our technology. He used to believe that, got to the crash retrieval program, and then realized, oh shit, we've reverse engineered some of this. It's there for your interpretation. It's interesting nevertheless. Okay. Now I was riding a high, okay, up until this point. Up until this point. I was like, you know what? I'm going into this hearing. I'm going to have some fun. I'm going to see George Knapp. We're not going to get disclosure out of this damn hearing, you know. I'm not going to get irritated by it. I'm just going to sit down, watch this thing, and be happy. And I was. The first really big down moment for me was what Borland says right here about Bob Lazar. Okay, especially down about Borland after this.
Real quickly. Yeah, to be honest with you, I think Bob Lazar, and not for the reasons that most would talk about, mainly because Bob Lazar was immediately discredited. They said he never worked where he worked. They said he never did what he did. But yet Bob Lazar showed up with a bunch of friends and a video camera and was filming these test flights in the middle of the desert. So clearly he knew something.
Okay. Now, you could say, well, he doesn't really mention Bob Lazar in that way of like maybe Element 115, that his story is completely real. He's not fully endorsing Bob Lazar. I hear you. When I hear him talk, though, there are subtle nods to that I think he does believe Bob's story. There's a point in the hearing where Congressman Perry asks all three of these witnesses. He asked Nusatelli, Wiggins, and Borland, did you believe in UFOs before your sightings? They all said yes in a roundabout way, all of them, which was actually kind of interesting because each one of them said yes in kind of a more vague way as it went down the line, Borland being the vaguest about his yes, but in my opinion, I took it as a yes. Okay? If Borland was a former believer of UFOs, and I'll say for the record too, I don't care that they are. That doesn't do anything to me on it. It doesn't discredit them at all. But I do think it gives us a little bit of an inside look at maybe how he really does feel about Lazar. Because a lot of people that follow UFOs, a lot of people believe Bob. And when you say something as verifying as this, let me play this back for you guys. Okay, hear it through my ears for just a second.
Bob Lazar showed up with a bunch of friends and a video camera and was filming these test flights in the middle of the desert. So clearly he knew something.
Oh, so clearly he knew something. Okay, well, let me tell you something that maybe Dylan Borland doesn't know about those sightings out in the desert. John Lear and Gene Huff had been going out to the desert before Bob Lazar. Or not Gene Huff. I think it might have been Gene. It might have been John. I'm going to mess up the name off the top of my head right now, but I think it was. But they were going out, and John Lear was already documenting these sightings. So Bob would have known that these test flights were already going on. Bob didn't have to be on the base to know about those test flights. This is the point I'm trying to make. Okay? When he says it, he must have knew something. I really take that as he backs up Bob's story. I could be wrong. I would love to hear him talk more about Lazar. It kills me that the most we hear about Bob Lazar is from Borland. It's not from Knapp. I really wanted to get Knapp on the record for some of this Lazar stuff. Because we're at a point now where if Bob Lazar isn't going to show up to the hearing, I don't want to tangent too much here, guys, but I want to get this thought out. If we can't get Bob to show up, which Bob has, he's denounced going. He's not going to go. He said, I don't want to stir the pot up, and you can see it on video where Corbell's talking to him. This is the moment where we had a chance to maybe get something on record about it, and it's just not what we want. And if he's a believer, if Borland is a believer in Lazar, damn. You know, that hurts a little bit. That hurts a little bit of my feelings on him. I don't know how to say credibility, because I mean, if he's seen the programs, it doesn't really matter what he believes. But it just, for my just putting it out there for me to believe, it hurts him a little bit to me. I'd like to see him talk to Jeremy Reese, alien scientist. I'd like to see him go on Alien Scientist's website on Bob Lazar and go through that story and kind of learn more about Bob, because it might change his opinion on that a little bit. And It was just one of those moments where I was like, I think experience that he cringed at this moment. You know? I stood up at my computer. I just went, fuck, no. I was having like that moment from Breaking Bad where Jesse's in the back of the car and he's, no, because I was so on board. It was like, I was so on board with giving this guy the ultimate chance. And then we ran into that. And then ufology stepped in and reared its ugly head. So we'll see. But that was just a moment that stuck out to me. Okay. Now the Pogo group, we're going to move on to Pogo. I don't think I have anything else on Dylan that I really want to put forward for you guys. At least not at this moment in time. No. Okay. So we're going to go to Pogo. Now, Pogo is a whistleblower. I don't want to describe him. This was the fifth witness. Okay, there was a witness that was dropped right at the very end, where right before the hearing they said, okay, here's this fifth person that's coming in, and this was a lobbying group essentially. I could be describing that wrong, with all fairness, but they're in here talking to Congress about whistleblower protections. Okay, they're a nonprofit. They're a nonprofit. Okay, that is giving guidance, that is giving recommendations on how Congress can deal with whistleblowers. They're kind of talking about the problems that whistleblowers run into, going through the ICIG, how their complaints, how those are handled, how the blowback comes on to these whistleblowers, the reprisals. A lot of people don't call them whistleblowers. Once again, not here to argue that. I just kind of want to give you a little bit of look at what's going on. So in the statement from Pogo, which doesn't surprise me, these guys are here because once again, the theme, a couple of themes, whistleblower protections. This was one of the parts of the statement that really kind of stood out to me. Okay. So it says recommendations. Whistleblowers deserve safe channels to make legal disclosures and expose wrongdoing. Congress needs to legislate in order to increase whistleblower protections and ensure those protections are strongly enforced. Pogo has identified several steps Congress should take. Establish an independent mechanism. Now hear this out. For intelligence and military whistleblowers who face additional institutional hurdles to make lawful disclosures, and empower independent adjudicators to provide appropriate and timely due process relief for whistleblowers who face retaliation. So when I read that, sounds like Arrow. It does. Sounds very similar to Arrow. They're asking Congress to establish a new independent mechanism for intelligence and military whistleblowers. It just sounds like, they're trying to get away from Arrow. Now, I understand the reason why they're trying to get away from that, because they kind of continue on throughout this to talk about this. That what happens is because Arrow is a part of the Department of Defense, these whistleblowers are going and they're getting the reprisals because the information is heading into Arrow, and then Arrow is either scrubbing it, in their opinion, or they're using it to retaliate. So a lot of people have talked about how Arrow is quote unquote a catch and kill program, blah, 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 because it's attached to the DOD. So it's essentially DOD is investigating itself. And this has been a problem that a lot of people have stated. All right. So they're saying we need something else. We need something outside of it. So outside of that loop. It's interesting, right? I don't know. That was all that I could really pull from them that I thought was an interesting situation. I still think that there's problems even if you go this route. I mean, you're still going to have people with clearances talking to these guys. You're still going to have to get them in some kind of association, right? Otherwise, they can't talk about this information. So I don't know how well this would work. I'm not going to claim to be an expert on it either. I just think that it's interesting that this is what these guys are calling for over here at Pogo, okay? That's there. Now, what I want to move on to now is Burleson. Burleson had a couple of really big moments. I know we're getting to an hour and 6, so we're actually probably on a pretty good course here to be at an hour and a half. I want to get on the Burleson quotes here. I want to go over the Hellfire video, the timeline of that. We'll go over the debunk, little post-hearing, and then I'll get my final thoughts. We'll wrap this thing up, okay? So Burleson was he was full of fire. All right? He was full of a lot of fire during this hearing. And he came out. I mean, he was really going after it, Okay. But he said some interesting things. And here's an interesting clip of him speaking. And then who else do we see here? David Grush. You got to pull the clip with Grush, right? You got to get him in here. This is also from RPK. I've not jumped to the conclusion that aliens are coming from another planet. Whoa. Let's play the clip here. Burleson was swinging.
Look, I'm not jumped to the conclusion that I believe that there are, aliens coming from another planet. But I'm open to that. And I think that it's our responsibility, especially when we're seeing that we have a government that is actively blocking information from us. Just last night, I tried to get an amendment onto the National Defense Authorization Act that fit in the germaneness of that bill to have UAP disclosure. And conveniently, it was named non-germane, mostly deemed by staff.
I believe the germane thing, and I could be wrong about this, but I believe that means like the relevancy. So what he's saying is he put forward legislation that seemed relevant that was deemed irrelevant, if that makes sense.
Not even an elected official. This is the kind of stuff that we repeatedly see. Last year, we were blocked by someone in House administration from being able to receive a full briefing from Arrow. So not an elected official, but someone in staff blocked us. And look,
So he's mad. He's saying, look, they're not telling us what we need to know. Now, a lot of people will argue because it's true. They don't have the clearances to hear a lot of this stuff. Arrow, in my opinion, does, however you want to put it. Okay. So that's kind of what he's complaining about. He's fired up. He feels he's not getting told what he needs to know to continue their investigation. Because you got to remember, he's on that federal task force. He's there. Anna Paulina Luna's there. Obviously, she's in there. Big status in that. They're trying to kind of come to a conclusion on this thing. And this is why these hearings, I think, especially if we don't really get, the ball down the field, and really when you look at the fallout that we're going to look at the very end of this presentation here, I don't know how much longer Congress can really do this without really getting the ball down the field here. So he's fired up, and I think that's really what this is coming down to, is that they're starting to feel a lot of pressure. And he wants to put that pressure out in the public there. Let him feel that. Okay? So what does he do? What does he do? Burleson brought a video.
Not even an election.
This is a big video here. This was kind of the talk of the entire hearing, especially in the general public. I know more people on Spaces and Twitter, we're all talking about the witnesses as well, but we can't deny, at the end of the day, to really kind of get everything going, we want that great video. People want that proof. They want to be able to have something tangible. So this is going to get all the shine. Okay. But there's a story about this video. And we didn't learn the whole story when the video first came out. As you'll see, he's a little tight-lipped about it. But there's some things that are said that I want to point out. There's a little bit of history here that I think when we put this all together, we'll have a little bit better view on what possibly could be going on. Okay? So really hearing what he's saying, and we'll go through this for you.
Even an elected official. This is the kind of stuff that we repeatedly see. Last year, we were blocked by someone in House administration from being able to receive a full briefing from Arrow. So
a little bit of overlap here.
Not an elected official, but someone in staff blocked us. And I've had it. Enough is enough.
He's had it.
I want to cue up a video that I've been given. And as before it starts, I'm going to describe. This was taken October 30th of 2024. This video is of an MQ-9 drone tracking an orb, or this object, off the coast of Yemen. You'll see that another MQ-9 launched a Hellfire missile. That you cannot see that drone, and so I'm not going to explain it to you. You'll see exactly what it does.
He ain't explaining shit. You can just watch it. So this is the video. The orb and the Hellfire here. When I first seen this, I was kind of like, whoa, can't lie. It was pretty cool. Here's the bounce off. Listen to the crowd.
This is when it zoomed out, so you can still see it traveling.
The guy in the background said, was it declassified? Somebody in the background. I heard that right away because that was already what I was thinking. Is this classified video? Declassified? This looks pretty incredible, no?
So, Mr. Knapp, have you heard about events like this occurring? And what information might you have?
I have heard about events like this. I have heard about this event. Jeremy Corbell and I talked about it in one of our episodes a while back. We did.
Yes, they did.
Not have the video, though. There are servers where there's a whole bank of these kind of videos that Congress has not been allowed to see, that the public hasn't been allowed to see. Occasionally, some of that stuff gets out in the wild and it comes our way. It should be going to you.
Occasionally gets out of the way. Yeah, we have. Okay, we have heard about this. And I'm gonna drop this down here. We go over this. So this is interesting. Okay, how do we know? How do we know about this? Well, Red did some really good investigation work here, and we found he found the moment where this is first brought up. This is in March of 2025. Okay, Jeremy Corbell referenced the Hellfire UFO video on part 3 of the weaponized Matthew Brown interview. This is pretty interesting. I'll play this for you guys.
Okay. You ever see any videos where we're engaging with them? Either we're chasing them, our warplanes or something, or going after a disc, a saucer, an orb, or something like that?
So I've seen videos and read reports of engagements, but not live, like we're not shooting them, but engagements where, either we are trying to intercept something, read lots of reports on that, and from other countries as well, trying to intercept these things. Each report will have its own shape that they're chasing, but guess what they are. But then, when there's an example in there off the East Coast, what would be classed as an engagement, where we're up there protecting our airspace and encountering these things and interacting with them in a way that we would consider hostile. And if it was anything else, if we had a Russian bomber patrol that had a fighter escort and they tried to box our fighters out, force them down from the wash, the jet wash, that would be a hostile engagement. But for whatever reason, we're not describing it that way internally.
So we're sending a plane up to take a look.
Yeah.
Maybe get a better look or even some imagery, but not to engage, meaning shoot it down, shoot a Sidewinder at it or something.
Right. I would, I'm not going to be able to say that's never happened, but I have not seen them engaged, with weapons.
Well, it recently happened, and we became aware of one. More details on that I think we'll report on. And what happened was the missile, quote, bounced off. And so they're trying to figure that out, but what does that imply? Like a field around it? I don't know. We also released one that was so embarrassing to release, we had to call it looked like Kermit the Frog. I think we called it Syria Dome UAP.
I remember that one. Okay, but I know there's some extra time here, 14 seconds or whatever left, but it's not really what I want to go over. So this is where we first originally heard about this incident. Okay, interesting, right? So why does this matter? Why are we looking at it? Why are we going back even further? Okay, well, because Burleson comes out a day after the hearing. Well, this was posted from Mick West on the 10th, but I think this was actually the night of, if I remember correctly, because I remember laying in bed and seeing this clip of Burleson talking about how he got this video. And I remember my initial reaction to this video was, wait, what? What's going on? He did what? So I'm going to play this for you guys and see, get your reaction. This is pretty interesting stuff here.
Hearing on UAPs. This is what you want to look at here. You see how it was shot at one point in time? Congressman Eric Burleson will join me in a moment. He played this black and white video, which shows purportedly a UFO being struck down by a Hellfire missile originating from a U.S. military drone. Now, Hellfire missiles are precision strike weapons that are manufactured by Lockheed Martin.
So far, we're okay. So far, we're all right.
Video, I've watched it a bunch. Now our audience has watched it several times. Tell me what we saw.
Oh, yeah, it's a remarkable video. I received it anonymously with what it's in a way in which I've learned is called a dead drop.
What?
The video was scrubbed from all information.
No.
So, and that's why I'm saying.
What's a dead drop? Hold on one second.
Yeah,
What's
what
a
is
dead
that?
Drop?
Completely anonymously. There's nothing to trace back to, and I have no idea who gave it to me. So I decided.
listen to the reporter. Go back one more time. This is very funny. His reaction.
So I just.
He gave him a. Really? You just took a anonymous video that you have no idea where it came from, no idea the information on it, no nothing. This was quite the moment.
I could either sit on it and try to.
And he says I can either sit on it and try to figure it out, but he doesn't have the time to, or he can crowdsource it. Okay, you can crowdsource it. Now, why is this such a problem? Well, the problem is if we go back to the video here,
not even an elected official.
Okay, let's scrub through this and what he's saying here. Okay, because there's problems, and I'm going to be honest with you. I don't believe that he doesn't know more about this video. I don't believe that they haven't had it researched. I don't believe any of that, mainly because he obviously knows a lot of information about it because he's making a lot of these statements. Now, could it be that he really did just throw up this video and he's just making this stuff up? I mean, I guess, but I don't see that being the case. So why doesn't he make a mention of these things before, which is him talking about how he got it as a dead drop? Why is he not talking about that in front of Congress? Why isn't he talking about how he didn't have any time to research it? He just wants to put it out here for the public. Why is he not saying these things in this hearing situation? I think it's because that's bullshit, because he has taken the time. And I will give you some examples here of why I think that's the case. Here we go. Here's one of them.
So not an elected official given. And as before it starts, I'm going to describe, this was taken October 30th of 2024.
How do you know that? How does he know it was October 30th, 2024? Now you're probably saying, Terrestrial, well, look down there. It says October 30th, 2024 on the video. Okay. You see down here where it says Burleson video for me? I typed that. That's why that's there. It's the same situation as this video. That's typed in. Okay. So you would have to know a little bit more background to even make that statement. How the hell would he know it's October 30th, 2024 if it's a dead drop with no information, right? So we got a little bit of prior information on that, and we'll continue when he mentions something else here. I think it's kind of a dead giveaway.
This video is of an MQ-9 drone tracking an orb, or this object, off the coast of Yemen.
Now, he could know that it's an MQ-9. If he just, pulled up some other MQ-9 footage, it looks very similar. You guys can look up some examples of that too. They're everywhere. It's very easy to see that it is MQ-9. So I could give him that. But what else does he say?
You'll see that another MQ-9 launched a Hellfire missile. That you cannot see that drone.
Oh, if we can't see it and you got it as a dead drop, how do you know it's there? How do you know the other one did that? A lot of people have talked about how these Hellfire missiles are actually ground to air, and we're out over the water. So I don't, that doesn't make any sense. He's made already the date. He's called it an orb. How would he know it's an orb? I mean, yeah, it kind of looks like an orb, but I mean, he's making these statements, and honestly, the orb statement is very leading, especially if he doesn't know what it is. I get we got to call it something, so we're doing that, but you can't get away from it that it's very leading. But he's mentioning this other MQ-9 drone that we don't see. There's a lot of info here.
And so I'm not going to explain it to you.
And how does he know it's a Hellfire? I mean, I'm sure there's some military people that can look at it. Maybe they can look at it and tell you, but shit, I don't know what the Hellfire looks like in this kind of a video. So how would he know off the top of his head? Doesn't make any sense, right?
You'll see exactly what it does.
Okay, and it gets really quiet here. And the guy says declassified. That's the other thing. That's another good point. Is he out here? Are we really led to believe that he's getting dead drop classified footage and that he's not taking a look into the background of any of it? He's not referring to Grush. He's not referring to anyone around him. No other military people. He doesn't ask any kind of opinions on what this is, tried to do any investigation. He's just putting it out in this public hearing. I mean, come on. How could you believe that? I don't think there's a shot in hell that that's the case. Okay. I think 100% they've had this. They've took some time to look at it. Now, I don't know. I don't really understand why he would be presenting it this way besides covering his source, who I think his source is, which I would guess that the source would be George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell. George Knapp refers to that server out there with all the videos. We've all heard about the R server. Okay. So that's my guess where this has come from, is that this is sourced from them. Okay. There's no way he can make statements like that. And I think there is 100% a reason why he doesn't talk about that in that interview. He only talks about it right here. Okay. He doesn't talk about it in the hearing. He talks about it being random right here. Now, another thing that's very, very interesting, okay, is now George Knapp, he makes a quote here. We've been hearing about this video for a while, and I talked about it on air a while ago. This is an interesting clip. This shout out to Joe Merger. You guys can follow him. He does a lot of UFO reporting and stuff like that. Pretty interesting stuff. I'm going to play this clip of George Knapp talking about this.
We've been hearing about this video for a while. Jeremy Corbell and I talked about it on the air a while ago. We hadn't seen it yet, but now that it's been released, awesome. Somebody had to leak that and put it out and put it in the right hands. A member of Congress had showed it to us in advance of the hearing, and it was pretty spectacular. I mean, a Hellfire missile hitting an unknown object, it bounces off, and then the object keeps going. That's some really interesting technology, whatever the hell it is.
Now, me personally, I think it had to come from that. I mean, how many releases have we got from Corbell? How many? 10 or 12? I mean, there's images involved into that count, but there's a lot. I made a list I went through and kind of compiled everything the other day. I think Red's still going to do a stream on it. And I was kind of pulling a little bit of recon too to figure out what, if we had missed anything or any of the drops that were there. But I think that this has come from them, and this is kind of a cover. There's just been too many of these videos that look like this. Now, this is a very good one, okay? And I have a hard time believing that Corbell, from wherever he's getting his videos, whatever the connection is, you can speculate, that they were told that story and weren't provided the video. It's possible, but I don't think so, okay? So I think they're kind of covering for that, which is interesting enough. Now, let me give you another reason why I think that, okay? The other reason is, you guys remember in Tubi, at the end of Tubi, on the streaming network Tubi last year, Jeremy Corbell released his little 3-part series. I'm blank on the name of it off the top of my head. But in that series, it was all about what happened at the hearing, and I guess it was beginning of this year when he actually released it, because it was at the hearing at the end of the hearing last year. But he went in on Nancy Mace, didn't he? He was saying Congress lied to the American people, y'all. He was pissed. He was very mad at Nancy Mace because he didn't get the credit for the Immaculate Constellation document. His front page was stricken from the record. Oh, man. It was stricken from the record. Now, granted, when Nancy Mace was asked about this, I don't know, 6 months after it or so, I think it was around the UAP Disclosure Fund little panel that they had in May. She was asked if she had heard about the Tubi show and everything that Jeremy Corbell had stated. I believe she said she didn't know what was going on with that. Okay. But I kind of wondered, at some point in time, she had to have heard about it, but she probably investigated it, in my opinion. So she would know of all the things that Jeremy said, which were pretty disparaging. That's how I feel about it. So after hearing all that, you would think he'd be shut out. You would think Corbell would have been shut out and he would have had trouble kind of maybe even getting her back on the good side. So what could maybe get them back on that good side? Maybe this video. How do we know it's the good side? Corbell's back on with Nancy Mace. Well, let's hear it from her. Okay.
So, Mr. Knapp, we are definitely going to watch every documentary. You guys have you and Jeremy have done a terrific job. I usually have more questions than I have answers.
So she has watched the documentaries. Oh, so she's heard him kind of, lie to the American people, y'all. So why is she on board with them?
I think we all do, and you guys are doing a terrific job to bring information to the public. Do you think that any of this is
you're doing a terrific job of bringing information to the public. Ooh. Am I reading into this? Maybe. I don't think so. I think it's right there.
Up by the U.S. government?
Entirely possible. I mean, our government and other governments have admitted that they've tried to use UFOs to cover secret projects, but I think they also do some reverse engineering of those claims. So years after people start seeing UFOs over Area 51, for example, they come up with the story, oh yeah, that was, we planted that story. So I read in a major newspaper just a couple of weeks ago, they planted this story. An Air Force colonel went out into the desert, went to...
Okay, so he's talking about the Yankee Blue stuff. But when you go back and look at that, she seems very, very happy with that.
I'm going to watch every documentary. You guys have done you and Jeremy have done a terrific job.
You and Jeremy done a terrific job. They've mended fences. Okay, they've mended fences. Now, one of my criticisms, I haven't really given my criticisms yet of the video itself, but one of my criticisms of that video, the Hellfire video, is that I wish we had that last maybe 30, 40 seconds. This person says 60 seconds right here on this clip, or on this tweet, to see exactly what happened to that orb, that alleged orb, as it continued to float on. What's that song? We all float on. Okay, what happened with that? Well, here's the interesting statement that Jeremy Corbell has about that. He says, astute point. When this guy says, the important part is missing, the next 60 seconds, anyone have that? Jeremy Corbell says, astute point. I can confirm. I am aware that there is more footage. Unfortunately, it was not obtained, thus not released by Congress. It would make a difference. People should demand it. Okay? There's a lot going on. They know more about this video than they're leading on. Okay? Does it mean it's a UFO? Or does it mean it's an ET craft? No, I'm not saying I believe any of that. Jeremy Corbell's videos have been not good, in my opinion. they've been pretty bad. I was on board with the jellyfish one until Arrow released the full video of that, and then Corbell never released the other video that he said existed. So maybe we have that situation going on here. Maybe him saying I'm aware of there being more footage is the same situation where he said he was aware of the extra jellyfish footage where it shot off into the air. Could be. Could be. But this is still interesting to have him come. They're all over this. They're all over this video. Okay. So what was the reaction? You know, what's been the reaction that's been going along with this video? Look, it's a cool video. Before this morning, I was definitely still a little bit more 50-50 on what could have been going on. Okay. Last night I posted, starting to see more people say that the Hellfire UFO video is prosaic. Post the best debunk you have seen so far below if you get a minute. Oh yeah, with the sunglasses and the little, I put the pray hands, like, come on, please. You know, appreciate you. Because I have heard a lot of rumblings. Look at this one, Ryan Graves. After further review, it's conceivable the video is of a prosaic target struck by a missile. Chunks broke off, stabilized in the airstream, and began a parabolic descent that is generally aligned with the camera angle, making the target aspect change nearly imperceptible as it descends. If we had a longer video, we may see the components impact the water's surface eventually. Without source details, I can't say more. But he does say more. What does he say here? I'm aware of much longer videos with clearly anonymous behaviors captured by the same MQ9 platform in other parts of the world. The witness is willing to come forward and the videos are accessible through the proper channels. Well, I'd love to see those videos. However, what I also would like to see maybe first is I want to hear about the people who actually had this Hellfire encounter. I want to know why they shot at this. I want to know exactly what the deal was. I mean, you're not kicking off a Hellfire missile if that's really what that is, which, I mean, I don't see why not. At least to my knowledge. Why have we not interviewed the drone pilots? Why have we not spoken to people that were involved with the incident? That's what they needed. That's what they needed. So when you start to hear people like even Ryan Graves kind of going against this a little bit, I know Avi Loeb put out a paper where he thinks it's more of a prosaic situation as well. I mean, look, these are this guy's opinions. I mean, I'm sure they're open to, with new evidence, changing their mind. I don't think he's even like stating it, you know, like he says here, without source details, I can't say more. I don't think he's really stating that it's 100% that, but these are people that you would think would be more on board with this situation. Okay, they would have been a little bit more on board. However, Ryan Graves is a former Navy pilot. I'm sure he's seen a lot of video. He can probably take a look at that and tell right away, whether how he feels about it. At least where he's leaning right away, he can get that out there. So when I started seeing stuff like that, hearing about these other people talk about it, and hearing people in spaces, Astral's been real vocal about saying, geez, this video, we're getting it. It doesn't seems like it's debunked. Mick West hasn't had a real big stance on it. But I mean, at least from what I've seen, he doesn't feel that it's anything that's extraterrestrial. He thinks it's more something more prosaic. So I asked. Okay. And I got a video. This is shout out Manny Area 503. He linked me here to Bruce R. Fenton, Bruce's video. Bruce says it's 100% explained. A balloon carrying 3 or 4 payloads on a cord. Whoever supplied the video to the hearing absolutely knew this. So who was that? Okay. So I watched this video, this debunk. This is actually pretty good. When I first started watching the video, what he was mentioning about the missile at the bottom of the screen, he was like, oh, this guy here, Alexei Novitzky, he was saying, oh, the way the missile turns and at the very bottom of the video after it comes into contact with us, and the missile doesn't turn, in my opinion. It's more because of the parallax. So it just looks like it's doing that. So at first I was like, oh no, maybe this debunk is not very good. But I always give everybody a chance. You got to give everybody a chance, even if you're not happy with the first 30 seconds of the video. 2 minutes of the video, I think, was actually how far out in it was. Give it the chance, because this is by far, the best debunk that I have seen. And after I seen this, this is definitely where I'm leaning very, very hard to that Alexei is correct, I must say. So I grabbed the 3 minutes here, and this is pretty good. This is pretty good. Obviously, we never know. Let's play it.
Okay, so this is what a weather balloon looks like with payloads. So you have this big...
Okay, so this guy does weather balloons, by the way. Okay, that's what he does. He puts these weather balloons up. So he's definitely, at the very least that I can speak of, very well informed on the situation. And when you look at what he's showing here, this is very convincing.
Big balloon, and you have, in quotes, orbs, or rather payloads dangling from it. These cords are typically 50 feet long to 100 feet long. There's anywhere from 1 payload to 10, easy. The one that we're watching in this video looks like it has 4 payloads. 3 of them are very similar, and the one that kind of blinks on and off during the video is probably the parachute. So you've got 3 payloads and a parachute in the one that we're looking at now.
And this does, I have to admit, this does look like that. It really does. That's looks very possible when you see this video.
Okay, we're looking at this from above, and so all you're seeing is a balloon. When the missile passes by the balloon, it disturbs it because of ram pressure. The balloon gets jolted to the side, and the payload becomes visible. It's very obvious. So here we go.
I'm not a fan when people say very obvious, though, and stuff like that, but, that's my only critique.
Just a little bit.
It's my only critique.
Okay, so the missile's up here on the left, coming in, and it just misses the balloon. I don't know what they were targeting. If they were targeting a 2 by 2 foot cube that's dangling from it, or if they were trying to get the actual balloon itself. Either way, it completely misses, and the balloon gets disturbed by ram pressure. Look at the location of the first orb. It is directly underneath. Now watch as the orbs, or rather payloads, become visible. Doesn't rip it open. It's not ripped. No, they're becoming visible, and they're dangling from a string, a 50-foot cord. There's payloads that are dangling from a 50-foot cord from this structure. From this balloon, there's a cord, and they're dangling.
Now that right there, he kind of leads, he kind of talks about this in here in a second, but I just want to point this out early so you guys can have a good reference of what's going on. There does appear to be some connection here. There really does. It looks like that to me. And it looks like it's possibly because these seem to almost get a little smaller as they go, not by much because it's not that much of a distance, but as it's coming out, you can kind of see that they're stacked below each other. They're below. It's interesting, man. This is really good.
They never make a perfect equilateral triangle. That's dumb. I don't know why people are saying that. You know, they're maybe for one split second, but they're gonna stay organized and they're gonna stay with it. I think you can even see the cord, and they're there in that one scene. Here, you can even see the cord.
Yeah.
Here.
Yeah.
That's the cord. These three are in a line. They're a payload from a weather balloon.
Pretty good.
Not a triangle formation. Any 3 points make a triangle, unless they're in a straight line. And so then they have the next view of this payload as it reorganizes. Well, what happens with a weather balloon when it restabilizes is that it reorganizes. So this is very obviously just a weather balloon being pushed by the ram pressure of a missile and its payload becoming visible.
I mean, I don't know if it's very, very obvious, but it's very, very, a very, very good debunk. I mean, it's plausible as fuck. It really is. So this blew me away this morning, and I was like, man, I've got to add this in because this is really, really good. I mean, I know we're going to talk about this missile. I can't lie, man. This is very, very close. Because when you think about it, this has all been talked about deforming. Obviously, right? Like when you see it moving, it's deforming. It's kind of trying to get its shape back again. And he's saying it doesn't actually hit. It's actually hitting these payloads underneath. I'm not saying that's 100%. I'm just simply saying that, damn, I haven't seen a better debunk than that yet. And I've got to kind of lean towards that at this point in time, for sure. Now, why is that an issue? Okay. Why is this an issue? If this ends up being the case, and by the way, there's no explosion in the video, of course. And when you see the kinetic warhead here, there is a kinetic version of the Hellfire. I at least want to make this point too. The R9X, shout out to Incredible Wahoo. Kinetic warhead is a highly specialized non-explosive warhead used in the AGM-114 R9X Hellfire missile, also known as the Ninja or Flying Ginsu missile. Instead of a blast, the R9X uses 6 hardened steel blades that deploy just before impact, utilizing kinetic energy to slice through targets and minimize collateral damage due to surrounding areas and civilians. The precision focus weapon is used in counterterrorism operations to surgically eliminate high-value human targets. So that's another interesting thing is they're targeting maybe possibly just the payload. And they just wanted to knock the payload off. So you could, that's just a little bit back of why you don't see an explosion. That could be the case for it. It's interesting, dude. It really is. So that's kind of what I'm leaning to at this point. Okay. Now I'm realizing because my bookmarks got knocked out of place. Okay. That I left out a part of this presentation that I at least want to make a mention of. Okay, before we get to the final post and everything else. It's a little bit out of order here, but I do want to touch on this. But that's where I'm kind of at. If you wonder where I'm at with that video, that's where I'm leaning. Now, Annapolis Luna came out guns ablazing at the start of this hearing. Man, I wish this stuff wouldn't have been put out of order. Lose the whole damn flow. You ever have that? Lose the whole damn flow. And I said a very, very big part of this hearing was very anti-Arrow. It was no Arrow. Okay. Here's Luna's opening statement. At least got to get this out here for you guys.
Recently, the former Arrow director, known as Sean Kilpatrick, attacked our witnesses and members on this committee. It should be noted that he's a documented liar and brings into question what his purpose at Arrow really was if it was not to follow up on investigations and disclose his findings to members of Clinton.
So she flat out calls him a liar. Okay. All right. Now I'm sure she's probably referencing the Brandon Fugel debacle there in 2018 at the Skinwalker Ranch meeting. We all seen the photo of Kirkpatrick looking down the table, knowing he's on camera. He had that really guilty look. I'm sure that's part of what she's talking about. We've also heard Anna Polina Luna talk in the past about how she sat down in that skiff with the FBI and how she feels that Arrow's not doing a good job. And she's talked about replacing Arrow being a possibility, something she may want to do in the future, which I think is another reason why Pogo, if we remember, they were at the hearing, Spielberger, and he was recommending in the statement that they create a new body, okay? A new mechanism. And that's obviously what we see here. So very anti-Arrow, but we're also putting forward an idea of what we could do different. But she also, if you notice, calls him Kill Patrick in this clip. Kill Patrick. And she mentions it another time or two as well. There's a lot of bad blood that's going on with them. Okay? So let's read this little post here from Stephen Greenstreet from May 29th. Sean Kirkpatrick, the former director of Arrow, responds to Rep. Anna Polina Luna's call to defund Arrow. See, I wasn't lying, okay? I wasn't making stuff up. She's talked about this. Kirkpatrick's full statement is below, okay? I reached out to Sean Kirkpatrick, the former director of Arrow, and asked him his thoughts on Luna's call to defund Arrow. Kirkpatrick responded, by the time I retired, the House Committee on Oversight and Accountability hadn't asked for a briefing from Arrow. I and the Pentagon were pretty vocal about it. Subsequently, Luna's committee finally asked for a briefing after I left. The Pentagon asked me to come up and brief them in a classified meeting. She accused Arrow of setting up a honeypot without actually knowing what the honeypot was. She also had no desire to hear actual explanations of events, calling us liars. I have trouble believing she knows the definition of transparency as it has too many syllables. Jeez, bro. Now you see why she's swinging maybe a little bit at the hearing. They got bad blood here. Her continued conspiracy mongering is matched by her ignorance. She'll defund anyone who tells the truth. Man. I'm going to reread this part really fast. By the time I retired, they hadn't asked for a briefing from Arrow. Okay. And subsequently, Luna's committee finally asked for a briefing after I left. So they haven't. So yeah, this is the point I was trying to make too, is that he's essentially offered to go talk to them, by the way. And there's no, they haven't spoke yet. He wants to go speak to that House committee, which he should. They should go in there. He should be at one of these hearings. All right. But the other thing that was mentioned too, okay, is this was the comment from Rep. Anna Polina Luna on the 4th. This was a few days after that. Rep. Luna, via her communications director, has responded to Kirkpatrick's comments. She says Kirkpatrick is an irrelevant little man who is a known documented liar, has blocked the release of information, and tried to discredit witnesses. Everyone should check out the News Nation article about him with Brandon Fugel. It seems to me that he's suffering more from small man complex. Man, she's really going after him, huh? And sometimes his big emotions get the best of him. Fuck, dude. Fortunately, no one takes anything he says seriously. We will continue to pray for the recovery of Mr. Kirkpatrick and his tiny ego and his journey to deal with his mental health. Oh my God. She's a fiery one, huh? She's fiery. So you hear that. And so, like I said, a lot of this theme was getting rid of Arrow. And I think I have the other clip too that showed when they started talking about subpoenaing, but maybe that's gone. Maybe they took it from me here. Let me double check if they got it. You should have heard the applause. There was applause that came out after Luna had mentioned subpoenaing Kirkpatrick. They mentioned subpoenaing him, which, I mean, the guy should come talk. I think it took it from me, guys. I think it took it. But the point I wanted to make with it was that the crowd there was obviously very, very anti-Arrow. You didn't want to be in that room if you were a part of Arrow, I guess, at that point. So you had this little bad blood back and forth. And I just wanted to make sure you guys represented that, or I wanted to make sure it was represented in the hearing that continued. It spilled over into the hearing on the congressional record right there. That's what they're trying to do. Looks like they're trying to defund Arrow, move on, and get something else in its place. Now back to the Hellfire missile. Okay, try to get back on track here. With the Hellfire missile, if it gets fully debunked, at least in the eyes of the public, okay, why is that an issue? Well, we talked about at the very beginning that the public really cares about proof. They want to see the video, they want to see the craft, the body. Maybe they want to see the math. That's what I want to see. I want to see something that you can't just kind of debunk away. Math is math. Can't fake that. But why? If it gets out that this is really a balloon and that's the hearing will get overshadowed. And then what will happen in the media? This will happen in the media. This came from Red Panic Wall 14 hours ago. Stephen Colbert reacts to the UFO splitting a Hellfire missile video Rep. Eric Burleson received from an anonymous drop. This is bad. Just to let you know, this is bad.
Now, here's the thing. Interesting thing about that story. You'll notice that I said tried to shoot down this UFO because when you look at the video, something crazy happens. A Reaper drone fires a Hellfire missile. Here's the missile. Boom! It knocks a couple of pieces off the orb, but the orb keeps going, and it looked like the debris was taken with it. That is incredible and frankly alarming. A metal ship fixing itself in mid-flight. Do you know what that means? The aliens have developed Terminator 2 technology.
Oh, no, dude. Say it ain't so, bro. Say it ain't so.
Or, even worse, Flex Seal. That'll work. That'll work.
Listen to that crowd, huh? You think the general public is going to give a shit? Damn, not good. You think they're going to care about the witness testimonies after something like that? Or do you think we're going right back to the stigma?
The UFO video was released by Missouri Republican Eric Burleson, who explained just how credible this footage is.
It's a remarkable video. I received it anonymously. I don't have the resources to do forensic on video. And so either I could sit on it, but look, I'm a disclosure guy. I'm just going to let the internet figure out the validity of this video.
Okay, good call. Good call.
Oh, man, it sounds so bad, doesn't it? This is how the public is taking it. Really bad. Regardless of how he got the video, it was a really bad deal for him to go out there and say it like that. I don't know. I don't see the point, man. It's really weird, but it leaves us open for punches to the chest like this. Like UFO fans are going to get a punch to the chest, Obviously, I'm taking like proverbially, punches to the chest. I mean, this is not good. This is stigma forming shit. Not good.
Yeah. Safest thing to do. The internet's going to get totally to the bottom of this, okay? After all, the internet are the folks who found out that one vegetable that melts belly fat. These stories make me a little excited, a little scared, a little turned on. Again, intergalactic queen.
Nothing serious taken from that video, but you know what else the internet does, Colbert, is that it debunks these videos, and we've seen it happen over and over and over again. It doesn't mean we get to the exact answer, but what happens is you get a theory out there like this Alexei's theory, and when people start talking about that, and that gets pushed out and about, it gets laughed at. It does. That's not good. That sucks to see. I hear people, over the years say, look how far we've come. We're at Congress. David Grush brought so many new eyes to the topic. I've worried about this ever since ever since Grush came out. I talked about this in my UFO log entry for that contest last year. That it was exciting to see Grush, but it struck fear in me that the progress that we've made, if these claims cannot be validated, that all of these new fans, all of these new so-called believers, the new podcast people that came out after 2017, the new podcast people and believers that came out after 2020, after staying home during COVID and doing the research, and then in 2023 when Grush came out, all of that forward momentum would be crushed because of shit like this. A lot of people have been kind of, pointing back to the situation with the irrigation photo with Elizondo and saying, okay, well, you got to give Burleson now the same kind of shit that you gave Elizondo. I mean, yes, you kind of do. You kind of do. The difference is, though, is that I believe that there is something behind the video. I believe there is knowledge behind the video, the story behind it. There is more to it, where I don't believe the story that Elizondo told us about the irrigation photo. So I think it's a little bit different. I do. Your mileage may vary. You might not agree with me on that. I don't care. That's how I feel about it. But it is very, very similar, and it can do a lot of damage. So before we put out a video that way, let's really take our time. Let's come out with a chain of custody. Let's come out with some receipts. And this is, I guess, where I'll get more. I'll go ahead and start ending this stream right here with my final thoughts here on this, okay? Look, I enjoyed the hearing. But why did I enjoy the hearing? I enjoyed the hearing because when you look at the hearing from last year with Elizondo, Gallaudet, Schellenberger, Mike Gold, all that we ever heard was, I can tell you in the skiff. I can talk to you in the skiff about that. Can't talk to you about it here. And it was an hour and a half of that. And it was extremely boring. Extremely boring. People say nothing burger. Yeah. Maybe got something a little bit here or there. But I, like many, was not happy with that outcome. But what I did at the end of last year, and I've done more and more as the years progressed, I do follow the topic. I do obviously follow it intensely, but the way I view it now is just different. I'm more on the side of watching this thing play out and commenting, and I'm really not on this rah, either disclosure or rah, they're all liars. I just feel like I've done that, and where did it get me? It didn't get me anywhere. So I decided I kind of wanted to, going forward with maybe this channel and Twitter Spaces and everything else, as I'm going to do more of just kind of, I guess, how I was before. I mean, I'll still call out things that I think aren't true and stuff like that. I'll still do all that. That's not anything that is going to change. But what will change is just the way that I view it, the way that I maybe emotionally get involved into it. I've never been super emotional, but I definitely disconnected for this hearing. And I said, you know what? We'll go into it. We'll try to have some fun. It's going to be fun to see George Knapp talk. It'll be interesting to see this Dylan Borland guy. You know what I mean? It'll be interesting to hear him talk. We've never heard from him before. Nobody seems to know him. We're going to get a new video. Let's just see what happens. I knew I wasn't going to get disclosure. I knew that. I think we all knew that, right? I think we all heard, we've all heard the skiff thing a million times. So we know that the real goods are going to go there. So there's not really any need to get too emotionally invested. But I think the difference is with this hearing, why I had so much more fun, is because of all of those things I just mentioned, but it's because we were able to hear the lore. But is that enough? Is it enough to feed the need that Congress has to, at some point, start fulfilling this, start validating? I mean, any way you look at it, I understand people that look at this hearing and say to themselves, well, what a fucking waste of taxpayer dollars. I get it. Sure. I think that's a fair assessment in a lot of ways, because the general public did not get any more closer to the actual truth. We heard more stories, but we've heard those for 80 years. It's not enough. It isn't. So hopefully these guys get into skiffs. Hopefully we get something a bit more tangible as time goes on. But I did enjoy it. I don't think it moved the needle, though. I do not. And I think when you look at video clips of Colbert, I mean, you see the Terminator 2 stuff again. Where's that at? Terminator 2 you got going on here. Flex Seal. I mean, this is guys, this is 2015, 2016 again. This is all pre-article. This is the shit that we had back then. this is not the right direction. We're at Congress. If they're going to take it serious, if they're going to spend the money, if they're going to take the time, then they need to spend a bit more effort, vet things, bring it out to the public. Do not just drop a video and make us look silly. I don't care if you know more behind the scenes, Burleson. You're making us look silly with this shit like this. Don't do this. You know, I guess there's my little there's my crash out for you, I guess. The 3-second crash out. The crash out retrieval program. Save terrestrial. But that's where I'm at, man. I don't know if we'll see anything the rest of the year. I don't know. I'm assuming at some point this year you're going to get, you know, Elizondo into a skiff. I mean, these guys got to go, right? They've got to go to the skiff, that is. They've got to go talk. Their reputations are on the line. People in the UFO community they're not going to forget about that. Mellon and them need to go. Maybe they're setting that stuff up. But next year, I don't know if they'll do more hearings. Maybe. It seems like it's just going to be, have to wait and see how everything kind of plays out. But if you wanted UFO entertainment, you got it. If you're gung-ho, want to know the truth, looking only to spend that money on the reality, you didn't get that. You didn't. God, I don't want to end this on a bad note. I don't. So we'll end it on a good note. Okay? Jeff Nusatelli, he put out this post. Despite the darkness, this is what we needed to end this on after this. Despite the darkness, good things are coming. Have hope. You think I planned this? I didn't plan this. This is how it works. Be courageous. Lead, follow, or get out of the way. You know, I think didn't Matthew Brown say something similar to that? Get out of the way, or you're in the way. There was something with him. I think he said that, but here they all are. And I wonder, it's a good little photo of them, right? I still think these guys know each other more. I'm interested to learn that. Orland and Matthew Brown, I'm interested to learn that. But that's going to do it for me, man. This has been it's been 2 hours, man. Sorry that this got a little bit out of order. It got, you know, like I said, the Twitter algorithm, or however it deals with bookmarks, it kind of screwed me over. It kind of put a few of these out of order. It should have been a lot smoother, but what can you do? It's tech. I think we recovered. So that's that. Happy Sunday to everybody. See you out there in Twitter land. Obviously, we'll be doing spaces and things like that coming up. There's still a lot to talk about. I hope that people continue talking about this hearing, and let's have to see how it all ends up shaking out at the very, very end. Okay. All right. Well, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. This has been Terrestrial Material. We'll see you guys next time.